people of the internets and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of Into the Void. I am Nick. That's Dan. Hold up, strike that, reverse it. And we are the hosts of this show where we go over the weird, twisted, disturbing, and the unlikely and just stuff that your parents don't like you talking about. So, in today's episode, we are going to be referencing, going about the vague whereabouts of the afterlife. So, we have quite a few things that we want to touch upon in regards to different perspectives, different takes, different religions, all different kinds of perspectives that we're going to go in tackling this subject. So the first bullet point, not Dan, Nick. Why don't you take it away? Of where are we starting out with?
Yeah, so today's topic we're talking about death. Not
as
necessarily.
as I am an expert in.
Technically,
Yeah.
yes. If you want to touch on what you even mean by that, you
Oh
might
yeah.
have the
If
most experience of
for
all of
those
us.
who are with only the left eyebrow raised right now, of a little bit out of context. If you're unaware, I am a cremation specialist, so I deal with a lot of death, the dead bodies, and pretty much decedent care as a whole. So, in referencing that, don't get too allured. Maybe just a little bit worried, but yeah, that's what I do. So I think I've earned that title more than some other guy that maybe just listens to Slipknot or something.
So we are fully qualified to know what's that.
So with that, with our credentials on the table, we are fully qualified. And plus, lest we forget, we do possess a master's degree. So just remember that, and taking into our account our perspective, just it may be just something to consider. So first point of in entering the afterlife, the death part. You probably have some questions for me that maybe I can answer.
I mean, we could just piggyback off of your experience. You've been doing it for, I don't know, like a year or so.
Over a year.
So you've been around um, corpses.
Mm, mm, mm.
so, so, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people went to like funerals, and I don't want this to be like a depressing topic. It should be an interesting topic of like what
Mm.
does happen. It shouldn't be like really controversial. I feel like no one truly knows. There could be a lot of different perspectives, and we could go into like different religions and what they view. I looked into that because I didn't really know what certain religions even believe. Um, but so you're around those guys all day. Um, I feel like when you go to like funerals, it's almost like a hollow being,
Mm.
like like a soul isn't there, and some people might believe like the soul gives body life, and once the soul moves on, then they go into the afterlife. So like, what do you see when you're with them, or like even feel?
Okay, I do get asked this question, not off the street, because I'm not just wearing a badge of like cremation specialist coming through, but when people do ask me, my chiropractor actually, she asked me this one time. She goes, "So you're around like dead people, like a lot, like more than like once than you should, like every 30 years or so?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I see more than like 10 dead people a day, so a lot of faces, a lot of interesting expressions and stuff like that." But she asked me, she's like, when you're around these decedents, she's like, I'm asking for a friend because they never want to, be that. Oh, I'm curious. We're all curious, lady. We're all curious, Jennifer. So she asked me. She's like, when you're around them, do you feel any kind of presence or anything like that? Do you get this like Jennifer Love Hewitt ghost whisperer moment, and like you see them when other people don't? And I'm like, I am far less attractive than Jennifer Love Hewitt. Much better hair. She definitely uses Pantene, but I just use Head and Shoulders anyway. Anyway, it's number one dandruff killer in the world. Anyway, so she's like, "Do you feel any, like, any presence, anything at all?" And immediately, without hesitation, I literally looked her dead in the eyes, and I was like, "I do not feel a damn thing." And that's kind of weird to say. Like, it's you're amongst these corpses that used to be people, and it's like it looks like they were like people not even a few hours ago, because some instances when people pass away they immediately call a funeral home, and then we go and get them and stuff and bring them back. And so these people are like still, it's kind of weird to say, but it's like they're still warm in a sense, and like you could still feel like there was like this, they were alive at one point, but being like a spiritual level type of energy, I guess you can refer to it as. I think that's like the one word people like using with like expressing that, like, is there an energy? Do you feel their presence, whatever? And how I would describe it is no. Um, when you're with them in the room, it feels as if it's like you have a remote or like a pair of scissors on the table. It feels like a object in the room, that it's just, it has its present, like it had, like you see it and it's like three-dimensional, it's in the same like realm as you, but there is no human presence. There's no warmth. There's no, like, when someone's like standing behind you and you could like feel their presence and stuff like that, that is just completely abandoned with that, and you're just kind of like moving something onto a gurney, and it just feels, it's dead weight, and it's just loose, kind of weird to say, but just like loose flesh, and you're just like moving it, and it doesn't feel, it's weird because it doesn't, when I got into the field, I didn't know how I was going to react. I didn't know how I was going to process this, if I was even like all for it, you know? And it came very natural to me, if that's kind of weird and disturbing to say, but it just feel, you don't feel anything in the room. Like, even if you, a lot of my job sounds weird, but like when you're getting like close to them to like buckle them in and like strap them onto the gurney, you kind of, you get kind of close to like get a strap like across whatever, and like the closer you get, like you don't feel anything more. You think like, oh, let me like put my ear to them or something, and like they're like no matter where you are in the room, you just don't feel anything, and that's so weird. It's, I don't know. I was dehumanized prior to this job, so I don't know if that was like, this job killed me over time. But I don't know if that's a starting point.
That is interesting. You mentioned the idea of energy, and a lot of people might veer toward the religious point of view, and others view or lean toward the scientific point of view. So if you think of energy, energy is not created or destroyed, it's transferred. So that's why a lot of people like, all right, after it can't just be nothing. It has to be something. If we're energy or our soul is a bundle of energy, that's why a lot of people could believe there's something more.
Mm. I think with my personal, like, where I kind of stand with this like surface level stuff, I think our soul just possesses our bodies, and we use our bodies as vehicles simply to exist in this dimension. So it's like death doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't just have any, it does have an effect on you, obviously. Like, how could it not? And with me, um how to describe it? It's okay. You know me, like I am possessing a vehicle right now. You know me, like how you know me is my soul, not the vehicle I am currently wearing. So basically, extract the soul from the vehicle. What you knew, who you knew me as, is not there anymore. So therefore, the vehicle is only left behind. So it's basically just a hollow husk that I was using to exist. And me, like who's talking right now, is just using, like I'm conforming to the language that we're bound to, the flesh that we're bound to, for us to communicate, for us to understand each other. But using words is very limiting. And so basically, we're just conforming to all these criteria to exist in this world. And we're using our bodies as vehicles. So me passing on why a dead body looks so different, and it's like they looked like that like I don't, you almost don't recognize them. It's weird. It's like that's who I knew, and it isn't. It's just the vehicle, pretty much. So me, how you know me, is not here anymore. Like I'm not bound to flesh anymore.
Yeah, I believe a lot of people believe that like we kind of just possess this vehicle, and unfortunately, a lot of people I feel like get fixated on that vehicle, and we're just divided in so many ways, like race, gender, and all these different things. When we're all still like, I mean, if you want to boil it down to either humans or souls, but if because so when I think of every so often, and we could go into like what we actually believe in, what happens about the afterlife. But every so often, I think of like, what if when you pass away, there's just nothing? You can't even imagine nothingness, but imagine like going to sleep and just never waking up. Because we're used to like, all right, sleep and there's an end to it. Like, or after dreaming, you eventually wake up. But this time you don't. And it's just blank nothingness. You can't do anything. You can't say anything. And that terrifies me when I think of that. But I will say that's also a human emotion. Because we are humans, we have, we have fear or we have sorrow. And especially with unknown things we're fearful of. And that's why a lot of people are scared of death because we don't know what happens.
Hmm.
But if you incorporate the idea of we're humans with human emotions, when we pass on, we're not human anymore. We're souls or whatever you believe in. So that fear no longer exists, or that sorrow no longer exists. It just is.
Hmm.
So I feel like that scaredness won't be there anymore. If let's say that nothingness is real, it's not like you're going to be sad during that time because you're no longer a human. I feel like that's emotions. What do you think of that thought?
I think when I was kind of delving a little bit more into my personal beliefs, immediately gravitated towards dreams because it was something that always fascinated me since I was a kid, and it was something that at some points in my life that I actually looked forward to in my like later years of just I like sleeping. That's, some people call it a hobby, but like I just really enjoy sleeping because I work. So just sleep is just nice sometimes. But um I think like looking at it in an eternal sleep to which one you can never wake up from, that derives from like how you kind of view dreams sometimes. They could be a dream that is like you're not lucid to yet and you just want to stay because you think it's real, and um there's nothing wrong here, and you didn't think it was a dream at all, and then you have nightmares, and that's like you want to leave at all costs. So going back to fear of that's being a human emotion, people fear to which they don't understand. And I think why people fear death is because that's the eluding question. That is just the question of humanity is what happens, and we don't know. And there's no scientific way of explaining it. There's no religious way of explaining it. And I think that's um, it's funny because I think when you were talking about human emotions of fear of what we know fear as, and when we get to the afterlife, are we possessing our bodies, or are we like this glowing orb or something like that? I think fear is interesting because there's like a million things going in my head right now, but um,
I mean, it's also like a
uh,
beginning and end type of thing. So again, because we're humans and we suck, our timeline is so limited.
oh, I got it.
Mhm.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, no.
So basically, what people want in life are answers because humans are not comfortable of not knowing something. So basically, when you come across a question that no one knows the answer to, therefore fear ensues because there is no answer to it. People are comfortable of there being somewhat of an explanation. I like the idea of life is just funny sometimes, that some things just happen. They're like, oh, it's a coincidence and stuff like that. I think people they need to latch onto something that has a certain level of reasoning of why something happened. Because if they look at it as, oh, that's weird, or something, how that led to that, to which that led to that, they need some kind of explanation because something happening that feels almost like deja vu level esque feeling, they don't like that feeling because it's something that you can't describe. So people need that reasoning to which they can grasp. It's a concept that they don't like the idea of the inability to not grasp a concept. So they need to like latch onto something that makes sense and that can be explained.
It could be based off of control as well. People like to have control of their lives. So something that's outside of their control, like death, like you literally have no say in it. So that's why they don't like it.
Mhm.
But going back to that other idea I was bringing up of humans have, like, we're born and we die. We have a set time limit. When like the universe is unlimited, where it's an interesting concept of like eternity. So for all we know, there's no beginning or end. We're kind of, it's just like a whole timeline, and we're just continuously living it. Like even the universe, which is like, was it 14 billion years old or something like that?
It's a few days.
And I mean, that might not even be the start. It could just be forever existing always. And as a human on a rock in no middle of nowhere, we can't grasp that. So this big question of what happens, um, are like you kind of mentioned, like, are we even supposed to know?
No, we're not worthy of knowing because that's that's the game. That's the secret rule that was made in place for us to keep playing. Uh, not to be like uh, lecturing or something like that, but Shakespeare describes the afterlife as um, the undiscovered country to which no traveler has returned. So basically, when he's describing in the to be or not to be soliloquy, I believe the term is with Hamlet, um, basically he is questioning to kill himself or to not. And there's a whole other deeper synopsis and comparing to to go through with it or not. But basically, it results to the undiscovered country means a land to which you are unfamiliar to. This is a country to which has been discovered. So it's you are living in a world that is familiar to you, and it is better to face a world that is familiar to you versus one that is not familiar to you. So in going through life, which he describes as just endless and eternal pain and suffering, at least that is a fathomable pain and suffering versus one that could be far worse than here. So we basically put up with life's BS because we don't, what could lie on the other end could be times 10 our BS here. So basically just suck it up here because it could be worse elsewhere.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah,
I
Shakespeare. We're I'm getting down with him.
Yeah, I feel like as kids, you just hate them because nothing makes sense. And I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm like, there's a reason people still talk about it.
Mhm.
But
He
that's
yeah, that I think the term is soliloquy. That whole thing that was greatly inspiring and just is I think to this day still one of the top, if not the best way. Like he's a wordsmith and just putting something in such a way that is timeless. That was it's like top of the line poetry and emotion. It's just so pure and just it was like and you know you read Hamlet when you're in high school like 11th or 12th grade and they expect you to get it, and that took me until well into my mid 20s to like understand and kind of like
start to understand. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like whoa, yeah, I was going to get this when I was 17.
Yeah, that's amazing thought because we're familiar with this. And that made me think of, I think it was a Lovecraftian idea of, let's say, after death is like a repeating timeline. And then you just constantly relive that over and over and over and over again.
Mm.
And I think there's a movie on that. I keep getting the movie name, but some people live in a timeline of like 10 years. So you like
Oh yeah.
after that 10 years you die and then you relive the 10 years. Another person lives for 10 minutes and then he, after that 10 minutes he dies and he lives it again. Another person is like a second. So you live die, live die, live die constantly forever, which would suck. And so like you mentioned, like we have no idea of what could happen afterwards. It could be much worse. And how a lot of people would think of like heaven and hell. If they go to hell, what would that entail? Like what life would you have then? Versus yeah, life right now is difficult. We're constantly struggling of everything, not only in our own lives, but we live in a society with other problems and it just stacks on us. So do we, struggle through that, which is known versus what could be unknown, which could then bring us to near death experiences, which is kind of interesting or not. So I don't know if you remember. So we used to work at McDonald's with one guy,
Oh
Josh,
god.
and
Oh
I tried to block that out of my mind.
god.
But he was a cool guy. But he said, I forgot what happened to him, but he was technically considered dead for like a minute or and a half or something.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I'm like, so like, what do you remember of that? And he's like, I don't remember anything. And that's why he considered himself an atheist because he was technically dead and he saw nothing. Now other people say that they same situation and they saw lights and they met Jesus and they had frolicked through meadows and stuff. Um, and I remember I was listening to another interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson with these near death experiences, and people are like, yeah, I saw a bright light, and he's like, you know where these people usually are? They're on an operating table, and you know what's above them? Lights, bright lights. So, some people might be, everyone's experience might be different. I never went through something like that. But do you think that a near death experience could be like a peek into whatever happens? Or is that just like, nah?
That's funny you bring that up because I was as you were going through that whole spiel, I was thinking of how I view dreams as basically like when you're we talked about dreams before, but dreams to me I think are just little sneak peeks into what is beyond us and our reasoning. And it's kind of weird with me because at some points there were dreams that I wanted to stay forever. And when I woke up, not only because I had to go to work in the morning, but I was like so disappointed that all of the good things just came to an end. But then you have like nightmares and stuff, and it's like I don't want to stay here at all, you know. And you're glad when you wake up. Um, so I always thought dreams were just like little snippets into the afterlife. So it's tricky because like the dreams you could also see like oh it's the brain thinking for itself and it's creating like scenarios in which it's basically on like on idle mode pretty much and it's kind of like running through stuff you didn't experience it which also leads to another thing I wanted to talk about which was nightmares in which like you're being chased by something or like you fall or something happens but basically why you wake up from a dream or a nightmare rather when you do is like say like the most common scenario you're being chased and the guy catches up with you and like stabs you and like as he stabs you you immediately wake up and because like when you get stabbed more likely than not you're gonna die so why you wake up is because the brain doesn't know what to do it's like it has never experienced death before so like a computer it just restarts itself slow it just like you just wake up because you're just at this pinnacle of fear that's like the surface level of it but the brain doesn't know how to process death so it just jolts and you wake up like whenever you get stabbed you don't keep dreaming like it's just like now you're just walking around with the stab wound like it and you just proceed on with the dream. Like, no, that doesn't happen. Like, just when you're about to die, that's when the brain just it doesn't know what to do. So it's just like it just jolts itself. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept that I never thought of. And yeah, you kind of just wake up, and that makes sense because you don't know what happens. But then I also wanted to bring up the distinction of I believe there's a difference between brain and mind. I
Hmm.
think the brain is a physical organ in the human body versus the mind is, I don't want to say electrical, but it's more of like the spiritual side of it, or like the electrical pulses of or thoughts. That's the mind. So it's almost like the mind is limited because of the brain inside the human, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So when we die, we release from this. This is one theory. When we die, we release from this vehicle, which releases the mind or the soul. I guess you could, they're similar. And then that goes on,
Hmm.
which then brings into like, could be other theories of we could be in the Matrix or we're in a simulation. So what we're seeing isn't even reality. And that goes even deeper.
I have such theories about the Matrix of this being a simulation. Oh my God, I go crazy sometimes. Like I literally think sometimes when I am going to work, some people, like, ready? I think some people are born or programmed, like spawn into this world to get in my way. Like to be that obnoxious idiot in the car ahead of me. Like he was born or like his what God's purpose, like he God has a purpose that he gave to this avatar, and he that avatar's purpose is to make my life complicated when it does not need to be. But that's just one side of it. Uh, I think so. Listen, this is about to get like pretty deep sometimes. I do not think that some people in this world are like you and me. I genuinely think they're like programmed, like what was it? Not
Non-playable characters.
yeah, 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 yeah. I think it's like because like my neighbor Mike, whenever I mow the lawn, he mows the lawn. Or I don't know if I'm motivating him to mow his lawn because I'm like reminding him of the last time he mowed the lawn, which was the last time I mowed my lawn. Anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, Mike comes out, mows his lawn, and he goes back in his house. To me, in my head, I've never been in Mike's house. To me, I think if I walked into Mike's house, there would just be nothingness. Like there would just be a empty husk of a house, no furniture. He would walk into the house, maybe take like two steps, the door would close behind him, and he would just like power down. And he would just like stand there. Like he doesn't have to eat, sleep, use the bathroom. He's just programmed to only become active when I just so happen to look outside. You know what I mean? I really like. I don't think some people are real. Sometimes I swear to God, like I'll go on a walk and there's like this person power walking, like on the same side of the road. And I'm just like, "Good morning," and they like don't say a word and they just keep going. I'm like, that was a non-fundable token. The
That was an
the
NFT.
that was an NPC. That wasn't the word. Not. Oh my god, that's an NFT. Wow. I've been hanging around dead people too.
That's so like there are how many billion people on Earth? Do you like imagine traffic?
I'm listening.
Each in each individual person has supposedly their own life.
Mm,
That's inconceivable of us.
I can't see that. I really.
Imagine if like
I,
half the people are exactly what you say. They're just there to cause traffic.
I just refuse to believe that there's like you. Whoa, you ever see the Truman Show? That old
I
Jim Carrey movie
I
where
want to see that. Yeah, I
he
should.
goes down a road and there's traffic all of a sudden, so he turns around and is looping around the traffic circle for a little bit. It goes down the same exact road, traffic is gone. And he's like, "Oh look, no traffic. It's like magic." And I swear it feels like that sometimes. I like how like people like you and I think. I do not think that most like you I remember some people don't have interior dialogue. Like some people don't think. Like they don't have like
Oh,
thoughts going on in their head. They don't talk to themselves. I talk to myself. I have full blown conversations with myself. I ask myself questions and answer my questions to which the answer I didn't know prior to asking. I have full blown conversations with myself. but
Yeah, I forgot the percentage. It was so weird. It was like 40 or 60% of people don't have internal dialogue. I'm like, what do you mean? So you're just
so you're just a PVC pipe, just
just a wind tunnel? Nothing? Like
nothing's going on up there.
it's wild to me. But going back onto the simulation idea, I heard of another concept. Oh, I'm not sure if this is relating to like the afterlife stuff, but like if there's an afterlife, that there's a before life. So it's kind of connected of an argument against we're in a simulation, because
Mhm.
if we were, then we would, it's weird. It's like an inception type of thing. If we were in a simulation, we would then create another simulation within hours. So almost like creating, I mean, we're almost getting there with like video games and AI and all that stuff. Like we're almost creating another world within hours.
So it
So
would
then
be
it
like
just stacks on top
simulation
of each other.
inception.
Yeah.
Like
So
it would
like if
keep going.
yeah, so if there's not a simulation within hours, then there's nothing above us, you
Mhm.
know? So that idea might not be right.
Mm.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. But also like with the Matrix, I thought when I first saw that I'm like, whoa, like that was so interesting to me of he actually wakes up and that one line of like he hasn't used his eyes before was like crazy.
You think that's air you're breathing now?
Yeah, like all the
That's like, whoa, Lawrence Fishburne. Whoa. Whoa, slow down there.
but yeah, those are very interesting topics. But on for my opinion, and we could then go into other perspectives of, because like you said, people want to have some type of meaning. So if they don't, that's why they turn to religion. So we
Mhm.
could go to different religions and their beliefs because I think that's also interesting as well. Um, but I think it's not like I have the answer, but I feel like in a multi-dimensional world, once we move out of the third dimension, we move into the fourth dimension. It's just like another layer down. So what some people believe is heaven could just be the next dimension. And that's kind of what I would possibly lean toward.
I think with uh tackling subjects in which it's like, uh, what is this? What's that? What happens? Why? Because of this and that. I think when people resort to religion, not like targeting any religion or anything, I think it's a cop out. I think I think when people is just, oh, it's God's will, it's God's doing, it's part of God's plan. I think people are frustrated in that they can't create ideas or thoughts of their own, so they latch onto other people's ideas and they like vicariously live through that of just like making those man-made thoughts or beliefs their ideologies. So it's just that like, oh, it's like God's plan, whatever, and it's I think uh short tangent of like how I view God a little bit is, you know how when you grow up and you everyone has an imaginary friend.
Hmm.
I think like it doesn't matter who your imaginary friend is, what he looked like or she or whatever. I think God to some people is you growing up and you not growing out of your imaginary friend state. So now, no matter which name or how you viewed your imaginary friend, basically that look, that depiction, and that name gets lost a little bit. And basically, the universal term is now God. So now you're still in that like childish phase and it's like you can't get rid of that idea, and it's like you're still in that like infant mindset a little bit, because it's just you're trying to capture something that's, again, you're trying to make it digestible, you're trying to make it a concept you can easily digest. So that's
That's an
little.
interesting concept. I will say interesting is very religion is very interesting because when you're born, it's almost for I don't it's almost forced on you of like, hey, this is what you're gonna believe until you like grow up and then you kind of have your own thoughts. But I have a question on. Well, first I want to go through some perspectives of different religions
Mhm.
because I really haven't looked at different religions before, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Might not believe with all of them, but I also have a question on religion after going through it. So I'll try to go through it real quick. It's like a Thug Notes version. But first, so there's Hinduism. So Hinduism is a religion that believes in reincarnation based on karma. In Hinduism, there are three types of karma: that of past lives, that of present life, and that of lives that are not lived yet. This karma will be determined in what entity they will be born into the next life, with the goal of eventually being released from the rebirth cycle to reach moksha. So that's interesting. That's like a reincarnation and going through multiple lives.
Okay.
Um, Somewhat similar, Buddhism, and this is I just pulled up an article. This isn't like this is a quick summary. So Buddhism is a religion also doesn't see death as an ending, but rather a beginning to a new life through reincarnation. What one will be in their next life is the result of how they lived in their past lives. So they could be reincarnated in six different realms. So there's heaven, hell, human, animal, hungry ghost. It's interesting. That's the constant state of dissatisfaction. Or Ashura, if I'm saying that right, the realm of constant fighting.
Hmm.
And none of these realms are permanent. Buddha's there is no death, just a series of lives based on accumulated karma. So that's also interesting. While reading through this, there could be different places that you go. And some religions might believe like you're stuck there forever, like hell, like, oh, suck it up, now you suck. And then there's also religions that believe like you're in this place, but you could morph into some other place, which is kind of interesting. Um, One of the most well known is Christianity, so that's obviously believing that Jesus came down as like the messenger of God. There's also a deeper thought of purgatory, so that's kind of like a loading screen of going through like if you believe in him, and then you'll eventually get into heaven, and then if you're not, based on like your actions throughout your life, then you go into hell. Then there's Mormonism. So they believe in heaven and hell. Where they differ is that before dead, you get into heaven. They need to go through some preparation that involves instructions in the spirit world. After a while, it all is good and okay, and their bodies and soul will be together again in heaven. So it's almost like after death, they go into the spirit world, and then from there, they move on to the heaven and hell places. And then Judaism or Jewish differs from many other monotheistic religions that there is no set concept of the afterlife. In fact, the Torah doesn't even mention the afterlife at all, leaving much of what happens to personal interpretation. For the Jewish people, the greatest emphasis is on life itself and respecting that life. While some Jews believe in a heaven of sorts, most don't believe in hell, at least not in the Christian sense. However, resurrection of the dead upon the arrival of the Messiah. So, yeah, they believe that the Messiah. So Christians believe that Jesus is the Messiah from God. And it seems like Jewish, they believe the Messiah is yet to come. So when he comes, then like that's, I suppose, Judgment Day.
When, when, whenever he
And
gets around to it.
yeah, so one last one we'll go over is Islam. Similar to Judaism, they believe in the last day or day of judgment. Allah will resurrect everyone who has died. Everyone who has died. That's a lot of people. At that point, they will be judged and sent to either paradise or hell. Obviously,
Everyone who has ever died.
that's a lot of people.
That is
That's
that's
interesting.
like a lot of people.
Yeah, there's some statistic. There's no, it's like a fact of there's more living people now than dead people. How sick is that? Like, how many people are on Earth? 6 billion or something?
It's probably up to 9 now.
Maybe. So people that are living now, there's less than 9 billion people dead. That's insane.
I think it's like every 10 people that are born, like 1 to 3 die or something.
That's exponential growth. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So those are different perspectives. I think that's pretty interesting. Um, I don't know if you want to touch on like reincarnation and stuff. That to me, the numbers just don't match up. If you get reincarnated into like something else, like all right, if there's 9 billion people, there's a lot more animals and insects and fish than 9 billion, right? To me,
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like the
I think
numbers
there
don't
was
match up.
like for every one person, there's like 10 ants or something. There's like ants could easily overthrow us if they wanted, you know.
They're probably
Uh,
more organized,
they
but
carry
so
leaves and stuff.
they're super
Some
strong. It's
people
pretty
I know
crazy.
don't even have jobs. Like,
They have 100% employment.
mm, you think
So
that ants are collecting workers' comp? No,
so
they're building something. I don't know.
but an interesting concept on since we're talking about religion. Do you think that there are more religious people these days or not? I want to
No,
get your perspective because no, right?
I think people over time, especially as of recent, have drastically have changed, or their fate their faiths are just like declining very drastically. I think religion has been kind of put on the back burner a little bit with everything that's going on, and it's I don't know. It's because we're originally from New York that we're just used to really mean and depressing people, but
Just terrible people.
just over around just terrible human beings. But I think it's not like it's completely dead. I'm not saying that. Um, but coming across those that are still like of very strong faith, that's like it's like a sight to behold. Um,
I
yeah,
wanted
it
to
really doesn't see like
Yeah, I feel
right.
like it's not really like back then I feel like people like went to church a lot. Whatever, you consider church to be. I feel like these days people are kind of just doing their own thing. And I heard this interesting thought, which is unfortunately I think is true, of that people are moving away from religious beliefs and they're replacing religion with politics.
Mm, that's
And
a big one.
I yeah, I thought that was very interesting of that like how we're so divided. Um
Divided, and I
it's
think we're like it's almost like we're choosing hate at this point.
yeah, but I thought that was very like it's because some people are like super religious. Now people are like super political. And I think I think that's the wrong way to go.
Like, oh, let's try to separate politics from religion or religion from politics, when that's like our entire judicial and like the penal code book is like based upon. It's like thou shalt not kill. Yeah, there's like, murder. Don't be doing that, and it's like, oh, we keep that separate. It's and when you look at any coin or any dollar bill, what politics are literally made of, it says in God we trust. So it's like we're trying to keep those two things separate. It's like, dude, they coexist. The government is God. And like, why do you think it's so? Because some people, they look towards political leaders or like dictators or even celebrities as gods that
Gods,
they
yeah.
just worship. So it's like, there you go. Like, you have like North Korea or something, that they think some lunatic guy that's running the country is like a god level. It's like, dude, no, he's just like everybody else. He's just a person.
It's pretty crazy. There's some dictators in history that they literally depicted themselves like they thought they were gods.
Hmm.
I think it's very dangerous realm because like religion, I would like to believe at the heart of it all that all we're trying to do is have a good life. We're all trying to be happy. We're all trying to like do our own thing and just get through it. And I feel like we're just making things more complicated.
Yeah, I think it's, it's like being. It takes. My mom keeps saying it's like it costs nothing to be nice. When I don't think I can disagree more. It is so much easier to be mean, to like, versus just choosing to be nice or doing something out of like just common courtesy or something like that. Like, being mean is just almost second nature to people. It's almost their personality at that point. It's so effortless, and it's such a, what feels like a go-to, because a difference of opinion, difference of beliefs, and I think disagreeing with someone or just having a difference in opinion, disagreeing is not disrespect. And I think people have lost touch with that.
It's a very important concept. Through all of the different perspectives that we identified and went through in this video, I think that's people are entitled to their opinion. You could completely disagree with them. That doesn't mean you shouldn't disrespect them. And it's crazy because when people get in like discussions or eventually arguments, they start attacking their character. So they're attaching people's thoughts to their person,
Mm.
and that's not right.
It's two completely separate things. It's
Yeah,
like
I
you
think
could
it's
have a coworker, for example, me and my coworker, uh, just just to tell you how he just to tell you exactly what it is, because that's what he is, not like a racial thing or anything. I'm white, he's black. We are two completely different people. He's into a different religion, I'm into another set of different beliefs. He's into a different kind of lifestyle, mine's the opposite. He's into this kind of music, I'm the opposite. Like, we are polar opposites, but somehow when we are like working together, we just click. Like, we just understand each other to a T, and it's just, we're almost like the same person sometimes, that we're like reading each other's thoughts. And I thought that's so interesting. That's like, how can we be polar opposites, but we're just on the same level at the same time? Also, going back to uh like the afterlife and reincarnation with heaven and hell, different dimensions and stuff like that. I once One of the topics that I discussed with him was the thought of paradise. And he goes, what is your like depiction of hell and paradise? And I'm like, well, I think that God and the devil is a state of mind. that when you do good, you feel good. When you do bad, you feel bad. And I think paradise and hell is here, basically what you make the world. So it could be your paradise or your hell. But looking at it as a religious standpoint, he believed in a heaven and a hell, and he was depicting heaven like the Garden of Eden, and just frolicking dogs in a meadow jumping, like they do.
Just perfectness.
Yeah, yeah, just perfect whatever. And I didn't believe this until he asked that question, and I asked him about it. I'm just like, why do you think paradise is paradise? He goes, why do you mean? He goes, why do you think heaven always seems like in Dante's Inferno, he explains just a constant ring, like ringing in your ears, ringing. And he's like, that is every soul screaming at once, ever. So he depicts hell as just this shoulder to shoulder, traffic packed hell, whatever. And I'm just like, why do you think paradise is paradise? Because no one is there. Humans are not designed to know what the afterlife is because we can't fathom it. And we're not allowed to know what the afterlife is because that in lies on the other side paradise. And why paradise is because if you put humans anywhere, we mess everything up. So why paradise is that is because no one is there. Humans are absent of the Garden of Eden. That's what makes it pure. That's why the Garden of Eden is paradise because no one is there. We're not supposed to go there. We're not supposed to know what the afterlife is. And that's just why it is what it is. But yeah,
That's
yeah,
a,
just trying to.
that's a really interesting concept.
Mm.
Of I took a different thought process of that, of that there has to be opposites. You can't be happy if there's no sorrow.
Mm.
And if you know happiness because you know sorrow, similar to heaven and hell, of that you
It's
know what heaven is
it's
because
like
there is a hell.
um, light and dark is not like opposites, for example. Dark is the absence of light. There is no dark or light. It's just one overpowering the other. So it's like you have white and black. White overpowering black, therefore there's more light than shadow. So it's just mitigating with the darkness. So it's basically just like what's more saturated over the other.
Would you say it's like a yin and yang type of thing?
Absolutely. I think that symbol is a perfect, although simplistic, perfect representation of just life in general. It's just the symbol is just it's perfect. It just represents the absence of light in darkness and darkness, the absence. It's just coexisting. It has a flow. It's perfect. It's unity. It's harmony.
Yeah, I yin and yang is such a great symbol, because and it's even deeper than that. I remember listening to a lecture with Jordan Peterson. He was talking about that, of how like the white is order and black is chaos. And if you remember the how it is, there is the white inside the black and the black inside the white, which then means that you can't have order without chaos. So there's still a slight amount of chaos needed for order. And same thing with the opposite. There needs a little bit of order to be chaos. So
Mm.
it's almost like you can't have one without the other. You can't have yin without the yang, hell heaven without the hell. And yeah, I think we're like living that. We could, like, Earth could be our heaven and it could be our hell at the same exact time.
Mhm. I think how people depict like say like same thing with God and the devil. I think people what they have done is they put a humanoid silhouette onto God and the devil because again, it's easy to digest. The
Mm.
most recognizable um, thing to people is the human silhouette. It's something we can understand. It's something we can fathom. It's something we could easily identify. So I think we have attached God and the devil to humanoid silhouettes. It's because we can now fathom it. When I think God and the devil are not like people. They're not celestial beings. They're not anything. The word that they pick, it's like in the name of God, indicating like God is a person. I don't or the devil is also a person. I don't think it's either. I think God and the devil or Satan, Lucifer, whatever, they're not people. They're constructs.
Con Yeah, concept.
They're just concepts in order for you. It's like good and bad, God and the devil. It's two different words. They're not people. They're just mindsets.
And that could be within all of us.
Yes.
There's God within us, and there could be the devil within us.
Mhm.
And like you were mentioning before, like one could overpower the other.
Mm. Yeah, it's basically how you just like one person is not one. I think there was a story in the Bible of like one woman in like the land was being accused of adultery. So basically, God or Jesus went up to her in front of like the townspeople and is like, those who are pure of those of you who are completely absent of sin, cast your stones at this because that was like the punishment for adultery back then.
Okay.
So it's like those who are absolutely pure, cast your stones. And no one threw a stone. And he's like, not one person in what I have created is pure 100%. And he's like, this woman is being accused of adultery. That may or may not be true, but I forgive you either way. We are all human and we all have sin within us. But if you choose to put light and mitigate the darkness as much as you can, it's that there's chaos, sure, a small amount, but just order that grants you not immunity, but just like an acceptance.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point as well. Of even like some hierarchies within religions of priests or even up to the Pope of they're like 100% just perfect beings. And I mean, I hate to go that way, but we're humans, and it we can't even trust what humans have done throughout history because the writers of history are the victors. So you don't really know what the history is. So what's in it's not like the Bible was written by God himself. Humans wrote that. So it's now it is interesting. It's one of the most unique books ever because it's been around for what centuries of maybe not thousands, yeah, I guess thousands of years, and so many different authors input their say.
Interpretations.
Yes, and that's a good word to use, interpretations, because like that movie Mother,
Mm,
that's interesting that he was depicting, I think he was like God or Jesus or something like that. So he like, let's say he wrote the Bible. Every single person could have a different interpretation of it.
mm,
Some people could take it in a good way and others would destroy everything.
mm,
This based on the same exact words.
mm. Oh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, definitely go watch Mother. It's an amazing film. Watching it the first time, I was like, "What the hell is going on?"
I thought it
And
was the worst movie ever.
oh
Like that
yeah,
made absolutely no sense.
like understanding the background and what represents what and watching it again, this movie is not enough people talk about this movie. It is a masterpiece. It is one of the most disturbing movies you will ever see, but it is wow. It's incredible. Uh a million things going on in my head, but
Yeah, no.
talking
I
to
mean, I have one last topic. I don't know why I thought of it during this, but it's almost like I feel like there's a lot more in history that we could learn from of like how did it any of these thoughts stem from anything? And I don't know why I thought of the Library of Alexandria.
oh my god.
Of there is so much and I just learned about this like not long ago. So it was burned down, I believe Egypt in like 50 BC possibly by supposedly Caesar. And
Mm,
it was like thousands of years of knowledge and information burned to the ground. And like how far did that set us back? So
hmm,
I feel like there are so many more answers in our history
that are
that
forever sealed.
unfortunately that and we can also learn from the the knowledge that's still out there.
With the Bible, I just remembered. A lot could be lost in translation, but a lot could be altered at the same time
Yeah.
to just favor either one group or one perspective. So there's the Book of John, the Book of Paul, the Book of Luke, the Book of Ringo, the Book of pretty much everyone in the Beatles. Just all that stuff going on. Uh, yes, the Alexandria. That's when I was researching this, I was just like, oh my god. So it's like all there. We just like it's just like a lot to like read, and they're like it like hunt just countless scrolls and just so many just the world's history. And I don't know who burned it down or how it came crumbling down, whatever. But I'm just like, so that's it. Like that's all the answers that to every question we ever had about the past is just been erased. Why that be though? Like what are they trying to cover up? They're trying to like rewrite history at this point.
It's pretty messed up of how like you would never know. Like civilizations could have been lost. But I don't know. Religion's a touchy subject
Mm.
because I gotta say it because we're human. People do stuff for money.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I mean, there's that concept of tithing, I believe it's called, which is giving 10% of your income to like churches.
Yeah, no.
And
They
I mean, you could believe that, which is fine. You cannot believe that, which is fine. Um, I don't. That seems like a historical tax. I'm sorry.
I just want there if I go to church, I just want there to be AC. That's all I ask for. And it's
All
still
this money and you don't got
yeah,
us.
like a building went down in France, and then overnight they just obtained like $10 billion out of nowhere. Like I'm pretty sure this is like an inside job here. I don't know, but every time I went to church, everyone's got some kind of elementary school rotating fan that we're all kind of just like leaning with as the priest is talking about something John said. But yeah, as a wrapping up note, I guess in concluding in the afterlife of what we all believe, I guess we can move on to what you and I personally believe as like as our closing statements, as Judge Judy might say. Where uh, where do you stand in the afterlife?
I've evolved in this thought so many times. And I think you can't make a decision until I feel like you've lived your life a bit. So like if you're 17, you don't know what you're talking about. I've been 17 and I thought I knew everything. I don't. So originally, obviously, like as a kid, you go to religion or whatever, and you believe whatever people around you believe. Then as I got older, I'm like, I'm not too sure about this religion stuff. A lot of people are like, there's no guy in the sky. So then I really didn't know where I landed. That it's not physical though. I think it's like we were saying it before, that it's all mental and psychological, like that heaven and hell is on earth within us. So that could be my spiritual mentality at this point. But what technically happens, I would have to lean toward multi-dimensional concepts of like moving into the fourth dimension. Like we're currently in the third. I mean, because I also think of like the Big Bang. How did that happen? There's one thought of there were two dimensions that hit. So, for example, like the third and the fourth dimension collided, created us. So when we move on, it could be onto the next dimension. And I don't know how many confirmed, or mathematically, scientifically, I don't know how many are confirmed, but there could be unlimited dimensions. Now, some people might believe that kind of a similar concept, just a different name. That's what heaven is. That you go to heaven, or heaven could be the fourth dimension. So I guess, if I were to believe in something, we would just move on to the next dimension. That's just the most logical explanation I could give. I will put in something that Keanu Reeves said. He was asked this question, like, what do you believe in after death? And because he's freaking awesome,
Mm.
such a simple answer. He's like, I believe that when we go, the people that we love here will miss us.
Mm.
And like that's you can't even
That's
argue with that.
that's such a Keanu Reeves thing
Yeah,
to say.
that's beautiful. And he's right. So, you can kind of believe whatever you want, but at the same time, I think we all should try to live the best lives that we currently have now.
Where I stand is a bit interesting. Um, what I think the afterlife is kind of scared me into staying here a little bit sometimes. Um, I think I do believe in similarly with the multi dimensions. I think there are infinite dimensions, infinite possibilities, this, that, and the other thing. So you could basically appear anywhere else. You could be reincarnated to something else. You could uh, be here, be there. I think what happens to us, regardless of what your beliefs are, I'm sorry, regardless of what your religion is, I think what happens to us is what you truly believe. What happens to you personally, that's what happens. Like you could be a Christian, you could be into Judaism, Buddhism, all this kind of stuff. But I think some people just kind of wear that as like just like clothing almost. They kind of they just put that on and they like project it like I'm this,
Who
and I'm
they
like
identify
I
as.
I don't think that's truly it. I think what happens to you is it may be something you're scared of. It may be something that you have nothing but fear towards. That's why I think people fear death is what happens we don't know. But I think if you die and the afterlife is you go to a personal, that's just the thing. There is no heaven and hell. I think you go to your personal heaven or your personal hell. And your personal heaven or hell, that could be anything. That could be, you know, you you may haven't seen your parents or your kids for a long time, and your personal hell is living an endless time with just playing with your kids at the park, or just like all sitting down at a dinner table, just eating a meal forever, and just like you're just reliving that memory forever. That's like your personal heaven. Or a personal hell, that could be anything. That could be you stuck at your job and looking at the clock and it's standing still, or in fact it's going backwards, it's going so slow. Like that Invader Sim episode. He's looking at the clock so intently and it goes back one. Oh, that was really good. Um, but for me, um, it's kind of weird of where I sit. Um, and it's kind of the depiction that I chose to go with one of my books a little bit. I see myself ending up in a place where not only where I will end up, but actually where I think I deserve to end up. Not to say like I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. That's not what this is. I see myself standing on a black lake of just infinite. There you are in infinity, and you see this glowing tree, and it's just like pulsating as if like the sun is like behind it, and it's just making this tree just glow, just this infinite glow, almost like a sun level brightness. And all there is to do is just walk towards it, but the closer you get to it, the further it gets. So basically, you have this salvation that is always out of your reach. That you're all all there is to do is just to walk. But on this water, you do not even bring ripples to the waves, and it's just a calm, steady lake of infinity, and you just walk forever. And that could be seen as a hell to some people, but to me, that could be seen as a personal heaven, maybe, because that's just sometimes where my mind is. That's where some people can see as peaceful, or some people could see as that sounds awful. That sounds like an eternal suffering or something. Where sometimes I see a tree, sometimes I see nothing, and all there is to do is just walk, and that's just it. That's the end beginning and beginning end for me. That it just is for eternity. You don't have to eat, you don't have to sleep, you just walk. Like your mind is forever wandering. That's what I personally believe.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that endlessness is a concept that a lot of us could relate to. Of like it never truly ends. But
Like uh, there is it's like a place of that is the undiscovered country. That is the absence of sound. That is like the depiction that I wrote in my book is like, when you're listening to like a vinyl record and you get to like the end, and it's this looping, scratching, like crackling.
yeah, yeah.
I just for some reason hear that, and it's just this endless absence of empty audio playing, and you just you just wander. That's that's where I landed on. I don't know.
Fascinating. I do think that our what we believe would it I feel like it's constantly evolving.
Mm.
I feel as we learn more, we kind of evolve into believing different things, and depending on where we are in life, and kind of build from there. But I think there's a lot of different perspectives, and it's not like you can point at someone and be like, "You're wrong." Like you can't prove or disprove any of it. Like we said, if believe in like multidimensional stuff, where there's countless dimensions, technically all of us could be right.
Hmm.
So
And that's
that's
just the thing. It's whatever you truly believe. You could be right or wrong in this dimension, but what you have attached near and dear to your heart, I think that's what happens to you. So it's not like a you go to heaven and everyone's nice there. Everyone's like from Utah or something like everyone I don't know wherever they're nice. Not New York, but, everyone's from anywhere not New York or Jersey. I don't know.
fascinating.
But like I think because I've been like in and out of different mindsets in my life, and I think what kind of prolonged that wanting that eternal sleep at some points was I saw myself walking on this lake, and I'm just like, I feel like the only thing that would be in my mind in that eternal wandering is the people that I have memories of, the people I have like that are like in my head, but also like when you're listening to a song, like one of your favorite songs, I would just be like, if I was at that eternity, I would be like, huh, I miss listening to that song. And now the only version of that song that exists anymore because you are in this eternal nothingness only lies up here. So it's like, huh, I would miss listening to that song. So I'm going to stay here a little bit longer because I like listening to that song and
Mm,
I like being around those people that I like spending time with that
hmm
they give your life purpose. And if they see the same as you being some level of purpose in their life, that's what kind of I think keeps some people here sometimes.
mm. That's like a great ending scene to like a movie.
Yeah, the book's coming out soon.
Sponsored
Uh,
by.
it's over 3 years in development, but editing 700 pages takes a hot minute.
Jeez.
But yeah, that's the afterlife according to Into the Void. Apparently, in the actual void and different depictions of the void. So, if anyone has a difference of opinion, you want to shun us for our opinions, or you just want to discuss any level of any interpretations or any kind of depictions or anything like that, feel free to speak your mind in any way that you can. Re- re- Reach out, call us on our personal phones to curse us out on our religious beliefs. Feel free, not too much goes on at work. We're sometimes we have some downtime, but yeah. Th- so any last thoughts that you want to add before we peel out?
No, I think that's a pretty good ending. Just
All right,
try to be
cool.
the best humans that we can, I feel.
That's it. To summarize, over a half over an hour content, half hour content. Just uh don't be an ass. just try to just try to be a good person.
Yeah, veer
Other
away from
people may not
that.
have that same ideology, but to you, I think it's like I was a good person today. That's all that matters. It matters to you and it matters to the people that care about you. So,
Yeah.
with that said, that has been whatever number episode this is of Into the Void. So this has been Nick, Dan, strike that, reverse it of Into the Void, and I hope you all enjoy. Feel free to write, comment, subscribe wherever we post this. I don't know. So good luck, have fun, stay fancy, and don't be an ass.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye bye.